Welcome, this is 8.6. What is the quadratic formula? I'll show you a way that students have taught me that they remember it. This isn't my own at all, but the quadratic formula is negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Now realize the b, the c, and the a will have values because you're looking at a quadratic equation that's in the form ax squared plus bx plus c. And so these have values, the coefficients and the constant. So you would have numbers that you're actually plugging in here. Don't ever plug in the x value. The x value is not something that needs to be plugged in there. It's just the coefficients in front of the x values because you're trying to find the x. This is equal to x. Okay? It's one way to solve an equation. Now this is how different students have taught me that they remember the quadratic formula. A negative boy couldn't decide whether to go to a radical party or b squared without 4 awesome chicks, because it all gets over at 2 a.m. Okay? That's how they've remembered it. It's just something that's stuck in their brains. Now, let's look at that quadratic formula. A couple things that I want you to see in it. First off, when you're graphing quadratics in standard form, you need to find the axis of symmetry by taking negative b over 2a. Well, right there is negative b over 2a. Okay? Over here, the discriminant is right inside here. Okay? It's super important too. And the discriminant helps us determine how many solutions we have. So let's look at this. ax squared plus bx plus c. If we're given a quadratic, let's say it's a function. I don't know if it was an equation or a function. But we want to find the axis of symmetry. We would take the negative b, well this is a, b, c. So negative b would be negative 6 over 2 times a, 2 times 3, which equals negative 6 over 6, which equals negative 1. Okay? That is the axis of symmetry. And what an axis of symmetry is the line on the graph that's splitting the quadratic right down the middle. It's the mirror image line of the quadratic, or the parabola. So on this one, our b value would be negative 1. A negative negative is positive, so that'll be 1. 2 times a, 2 times 2 is 4, so it would be 1/4. So your dashed line on this one would be right at 1/4. So here's 0, there's a 4th, and there's 1. So you'd be right there. Okay? That's looking for the axis of symmetry. Now, if we look at the discriminant, this part, if we can determine that our b squared minus 4ac comes out to be a positive number, the square root of a positive number is going to be greater than 0. So we'll have a square root. Let's say the square root of 4 would have a square root of 2 and negative 2. That's the possibilities. So this means that on the graph, that it's intersecting in 2 places. So when this value is greater than 0, then we've got at least 2 solutions, and we should put 2 real solutions. Now, if this value, b squared minus 4ac, is equal to 0, the square root of 0 equals 0. There's no two options. So what's that showing you is that there's only one solution. It's only crossing in one spot. If the b squared minus 4a is AC is less than 0, that means it's the square root of a negative number. We can't have a real number that represents the square root of a negative number. So that would mean on the graph, the parabola's up here and it's not crossing this x-axis. So this is one real solution. And this is no real solutions. So that's what you can see in the quadratic formula. Your axis of symmetry and the number of solutions. We'll go further in the next lesson to show you how you actually solve them.